Greetings and welcome back to the channel. I'm glad that you guys are here. You're watching the most objective magic review channel here on YouTube. Today I'm taking a look at a new card magic project by Dani DaOrtiz, which is called the Semi-Automatic Weapons Project, Chapter 1, Lie Detector. Now this first lecture you can pick up for $10 from Penguin Magic. You're going to get a lecture that's a little over an hour long, where Dani DaOrtiz performs his effect, Lie Detector, live, and then he goes over in detail the principle or the weapon that is involved in the effect. He does a whole lecture on it, and then at the end he circles back and goes over the original effect, Lie Detector. That's pretty much what you can expect here, and this is the first lecture of 12. If you're interested in this type of magic, you can pick up a subscription for the whole season for $90, where you'll get access to all 12 of the lectures. They're being put out each month. Now, I was really excited about this project because I do have his book on semi-automatic card magic, and I actually picked it up from Grupo Caps. Now you can pick it up directly from Penguin Magic for $15. It's a little book filled with a ton of semi-automatic card magic. As usual, I'm going to try to give you guys an idea of what you can expect here on this project, answer those questions that you guys have. Then I'm going to go over my own analysis, experiences, road testing this effect, Lie Detector, and then go over my rating and some of my own recommendations for you guys, because that's probably why you're watching this anyway. So this whole lecture starts out with a live performance of the Lie Detector. If you didn't watch the trailer, a very quick synopsis of that effect is that the magician hands out a pack to the spectator. They turn their back and they ask them to cut off a group of cards and count them silently. Afterwards, they tell them to return the cards to the pack, to cut the deck and shuffle it, and then do that again. Cut the deck again and shuffle it. And then they tell the spectator, you're thinking of a number. There's no way I can know what that number is. I want you to start reading cards off of the top of the deck, but when you get to your number, I want you to come up with a totally different card. And as they're doing that, the magician's back is still turned to them. When they get to the card that is not the right card and they lie to them, the magician can immediately tell them, that's not the right card, you're lying to me. And essentially you're revealing the number that they're thinking of. It's a very clever trick because it seems impossible. There's no way you can know how many cards the spectator cut off. And because they cut and shuffle the deck twice, it seems like the deck cannot give you any information that is useful. So that is the effect in a nutshell. In terms of the principle that he's using, it is as old as the hills. It is not original at all. And he goes over in detail how to use that principle. So the lecture starts out with 3 different ways that you can utilize this principle. And then afterwards, he goes over 4 different ways of how you can get into it, because there is a small setup involved. He talks about different ways that you can get into it on the fly. 2 out of those 4 ways of getting into it are well known to all of us, and you're not going to be surprised. But the other 2 did seem original, which I did like. He does go into the idea of using other tricks to get into it, and he does talk about his effect called Chaos from Order, or Chaos in Order, which actually was also published in that same book that he put out on semi-automatic card tricks, using that trick to get into the setup necessary for this principle. He also talks about how you can use this principle and allow the spectator to shuffle the cards while you're using it, so it looks even more fair. And then afterwards, he goes over different ways of using the principle to come up with different types of effects. For instance, he talks about 2 different ways to force a card. He talks about how you could use the principle to know how many cards a spectator cut off the deck. And then he also talks about how you can use the principle to have the spectator make a selection, and then you'll know what the card is that they selected. So that's basically what the lecture comprises of. And then at the very end, he circles back to the original Lie Detector, and he talks about 2 different ways how you can perform the Lie Detector effect. That's what you can expect here. I'm going to go over a couple of questions that you guys have and then give you my impressions. So how difficult is this? Well, it's beginner level because it's semi-automatic. So of course nothing is self-working, but there are no difficult sleights here. And because of the small setup that's involved, everything is pretty much working on its own with just a little bit of help of your own. In terms of gimmicks or gaffs, there's no gimmicks or gaffs in play, so you can use your own cards. I think it could be even a borrowed deck, so that's good. The deck doesn't even have to be complete. Are there any angle restrictions? There's really no angle restrictions that you have to worry about. In terms of, is this something I can perform over video chat? No, you cannot. You have to perform this live. So those are some questions I thought you guys probably would have. Let's go over my own impressions, and then I'm going to give you guys my ratings. So my impressions of this project were that I was actually expecting something a little different. I was expecting a little more original thinking. The actual principle that he is introducing here on this first chapter is as old as the hills. It's used in a myriad of effects all throughout card literature. You can find this principle used probably in any large book of card magic, and I'm going to give you guys one recommendation of my own as we get to it. One thing he didn't talk about in the lecture that I was surprised was that you can use this principle also in a prediction type effect. He did not touch on that. I think that this is primarily aimed towards the beginner in card magic because a lot of the stuff he lectures on is stuff you probably already know of or do something very similar. And even the effect that he's going over here, lie detector, is very reminiscent of the semi-automatic card magic of Lewis Jones. Specifically, if you have Lewis Jones's book Person to Person, there's an effect in there which feels exactly the same. The difference is that the Lewis Jones effect can be performed over the phone or over video chat, and this cannot. So I actually would really favor that over it. That being said, I think that there's a lot of useful information here for people, especially if you're just starting out in card magic. In terms of the effect lie detector, I found that it's more of an effect for your magic buddies than for lay people. And after performing it a couple times, I realized that you have to be very careful with your instructions because I found that I had to tell a spectator, think of a random card now that you're going to use for your number. So when you get to it, you already have that card in mind. And the reason is because when you perform this for people, they're going to hesitate when they get to their number. And that hesitation makes it seem like that's how you knew when they lied to you. The other issue I had with the effect lie detector is that sometimes it doesn't work out the exact way that you saw on the trailer. And sometimes when you realize what number it is, they've already passed that number. So you have to have them go back and go through it again a second time. So it just felt like a lot of procedure involved. Overall, the lie detector effect looks very impressive. And I think it's something that plays very strong for your magic buddies. Maybe not so strong for the average spectator that's not a magician. And I'm going to give you guys a much better alternative in my own recommendations here shortly. That being said, I think that there is definitely something here for those people that are just starting out in card magic. Obviously, this is just the first chapter in this series, and I'm hoping that some of the principles that he goes over are more original to him and not just principles that are extremely well known to card magic in general. So let's go over my rating, and then I'm going to give you guys some final recommendations. So in terms of the rating for originality, I had to give this 1 out of 5 because it's not original at all. In terms of creativity, I give this a 4 out of 5 because I thought it was very creative, the way that he put together this whole lecture and the way that he thought through all of the different ways that you can use this principle. In terms of the teaching, I give him 4 out of 5. I thought it was very well done. He did a good job teaching it. In some places, he kind of skimmed over some stuff, but it's because he gave you so much information in a short amount of time. For practicality, this is a 4 out of 5 because this is very practical, something that you can use and something you can do on the fly with a borrowed deck. In terms of audience reactions, my own audience reactions I got was 4 out of 5. Very strong reactions, but then again, sometimes there was a little bit of confusion because the spectator has to do more than one thing at the same time. They have to remember their number, and they had to come up with a different card when they got to their number. So it just seemed like it was a little bit too much for your average spectator. In terms of the price, I would rate this as 3 out of 5. And the reason is because I felt that, for what you're paying, you are getting a good lecture, but you could probably get so much more if you just pick up his book on semi-automatic card tricks for $15. You're going to get a lot more for your money in that way. So my final rating for this project is 3.42 out of 5, and that's a favorable rating. I would recommend this to anyone starting out in card magic, although I think that your money could be better spent if you just bought his book on semi-automatic card tricks. Now, in terms of my own recommendation, what do I recommend that you guys check out? I would recommend that you guys check out Steve Beam's book, Semi-Automatic Card Tricks Volume 3. There is a trick in that book that uses the exact same principle. It is called the birthday card trick. It is an incredible trick, and the reason why I favor that trick over this lie detector is because in that trick, you have a deck of cards that you give the spectator. You tell them that you want them to think about their birthday. So this is something personal to them. You turn your back, you have them deal the amount of cards off the deck that matches the month that they were born. So if they were born in June, they're going to deal off 6 cards. In a separate pile, you have them deal off the amount of cards of their birthday. So like if they were born on the 15th, they're going to deal off 15 cards. You have them take a look at the top card of the deck and memorize it. You have them take the cards that they dealt and put them back on the deck, give the deck a cut. You turn back around, you take the deck and you go through it. You up jog one card, which is the card that they're thinking of, and then you're also able to immediately tell them their birthday. So I found this to be a much stronger effect that uses the exact same principle, and the reason is because it's very personable to your spectator because it's their birthday. So I had a lot better reactions, over the years using Steve Beam's birthday card trick, because it is, as I said, it's very personal. And for those of you that are interested, if you do have a memorized stack in mind, then there is even a better version of this that was published in Steve Beam's Semi-Automatic Card Tricks Volume 4. In there, he came back to the original trick and he published a version that uses a memorized deck. And the reason why the memorized deck version I feel is even stronger is because it's the same procedure of the person dealing cards for their birthday and that they memorize a card. But the difference here is that the magician simply picks up the pack and puts it in the case, and that's it. They don't have to go through the cards or anything. They simply just pick up the pack, put it in the case, and you immediately know the card they're thinking of, and you know their birthday, and you could reveal it any way you want. It's extremely strong, and for those of you that have gone through the trouble of memorizing a deck of cards, then you definitely should take a look at it because it's one of those tricks that's just extremely hard hitting. Now, if you don't use a memorized deck, then you can always perform the version that is in Volume 3, which again uses the exact same principle that Dani DaOrtiz goes over here. The only difference is you do have to look through the cards. You do have to look through the cards, but it's well motivated because you're looking through the cards to up jog their selection. So that's my recommendation to you guys, and you can see why I would recommend it to you. Anyway, as always, if you guys have any questions or comments about this project, this review, just leave me a comment below. Again, I'm looking forward to see what else Dani DaOrtiz has to offer. I'm really hoping that he has some original thinking to offer and not just rehashing old ideas, because I think that that's what people deserve. Anyway, as usual, guys, thanks for tuning into my magic reviews, and I'll see you on the next one.